This planting is in two sections really. It's this dry end where up here at the top, which you can't really see at the moment because I haven't got the camera facing that way, but very compacted. When I sprayed the spots and did a bit of you know, moving around with a tree planter, it felt like a very hard layer on top that was hard to get through. I felt that the trees were going to struggle, but it was a fairly easy summer, rainfall wise, temperature wise. We had a few hot days, seriously hot days, up above 40, but nothing for long periods of time to really dry these plants out. Here's some she oaks, black she oak. One, two, and there's a third one. And you can see that somebody has decided that there's something tasty in that carton. And it's true. She oaks are tasty. They can be quite a useful drought fodder. They're still alive. That's a good sign that they might just make it. Okay, here's a pretty daggy looking indigo, nothing to write home about. You can see that on some of the branches they've been eaten by probably kangaroos. There's a lot of kangaroos in this area, but they haven't affected the plants too badly, which is really surprising. I expected this to have serious damage, especially in the first year, because the trees are real tender and real tasty. So there's the nice messmate. You can see lots of them just off in the distance as I scan. There's a few empty milk cartons. But not too bad. You're looking at a couple of nice old trees. There's one there. There's one there. They're both scent barks. The locals call them applejack or apple box. Eucalyptus aroma floya. Aroma meaning scented, obviously, and floya meaning phloem. So the inner bark is scented. And off in the distance we have some manigums. There's some messmates up here in the bush. And just beside us here, I'll just zing around, that's those little trees there are radiata, the peppermint, narrow-leaf peppermint. So knowing that those trees are growing here tells me exactly what we should be planting, not only for the overstory but the understory. It's probably an EVC of lowland forest, which includes those trees. In fact, here's a little scent bark growing right there, looking very nice, very happy. Probably because it's right underneath Mum and Dad over here. So we've got a little tree everlasting here, Ozothamnus, Goodenia ovata, flowering nicely. And if you look, you can see a lot of the goodenias flowering. They're only a less than 2 meter tall shrub. Bit of a pioneer plant. They probably only live between 5 and 10 years. That's about it. I'm happy to see that the blackwoods and some of the wattles are still surviving. There's a blackwood there, Acacia melanoxylon. We've got, I'll zoom in on the Acacia macronata just in front here. Narrow leaf wattle or variable sallow wattle. Got two names just to confuse us. The reason I'm happy to see them growing is that they're again quite tasty for the kangaroos. But the kangaroos haven't done too much damage here. But just look at the the growth of the trees and the shrubs. Fantastic. These trees, all of these plants would be about 8 months in the ground, planted as young seedlings in Lannan cells, Lannan 81 cells, planted in quite a dry spring, but it didn't get hot, and the summer was mild, which is great for the trees. Again, scent bark or apple box, applejack. You can notice the immature leaves, the sort of the mauve colouring. That's why some people grow this as a cut flower plant. So they'll grow the tree. As it grows and matures, they cut it back down to the stump, and when it sprouts again, it's got these immature leaves. They would look fantastic in a bouquet as a filler. And beautiful firewood. We've got a few tree everlastings here. They're related to the dogwood. They're related to the daisy family. Again, pioneer plants. They don't last long, under 10 years, but they're fast growing. They set a lot of seed. The seed blows around. They become more of a, they pioneer themselves around the place, and that's a good thing. It's one of the ones that after a bushfire, the seeds will blow in from surrounding bush and colonize then. Okay, we're near the creek now, and obviously that's where the kangaroos are coming out of at night, wallabies. There's a few more deaths down here. See this little coprosma, prickly currant. Even though it's a prickly plant, it's been nibbled right at the top. It'll survive, it'll come out. What surprised me even more so than just the overall growth rates, but we put in some musk daisy, which is this plant here, and they're all over the place looking really happy. It's considered a shade-loving plant, more of a rainforest plant, higher rainfall. It does grow around here, and it does grow in these sandier soils, but as a seedling, full sun, doing it hard, they tend to not like it. The musk daisy is a long-lived plant. Can get into a small tree, probably 5 to 8 meters. Beautiful flowers. Pom-pom flowers, little daisy flowers all in a cluster. This little gum here is a vulnerable species in Victoria, in Australia. It's the yarra gum, Eucalyptus yarraensis. The East Otway area around here is one of the mainstays of the species. So we grow a lot of it, and we sell a lot of it because it's important to be putting it back. A lot of the trees that are still out there are all very old and starting to senesce. A lot of them are paddock trees. They're not fenced, very little regrowth. So by putting yarra gum into orders like this, it's going to keep the population going. Very important to have that diversity in here. Not only will each species attract different animals and insects and birds, they'll also provide nesting sites or food, or they will provide harbor in different ways, like the prickly plants or the prickly moses here. They'll provide a safe harbor for nesting. But then if you've got the tall gums, they'll provide a perch for some of the bigger birds like owls. They have different flowering times, so you can provide a food source that way, nectar at different times of the year. Not all it's in the springtime when everything seems to be flowering and there's a real glut. But then what happens when there's nothing flowering? I think the landowner is going to be very happy, well, would already be very happy with the survival and the growth rates, the quality and the health of these plants. But that's just one part of it. The other part, of course, is the environmental services that these trees and shrubs will be providing over years. And this paddock, which has been paddock for generations now, will continue now to start turning into bush soil again, like it was a couple hundred years ago. It'll start sequestering carbon with all the leaf matter and the wood. It'll start providing microbial activity in the topsoil. Not only that, it's going to beautify this property. It's going to beautify the creek here. It'll provide a corridor from up the top of the hill up there, all the way down here to the creek. So it's connecting that bush with the creek. Very important for genetic diversity of the animals to be able to move from one isolated patch to another. It's actually also going to help this tree here, this old manigum. Now we've fenced it off. The cattle can't camp under it anymore. That'll aerate the soil below it. And it's got all its mates coming on. That's going to help. This is a great example of land care. Great example of a landowner. I guess you could use the term giving up some of their land, some of their grazing land. But the benefits will far outweigh the loss of grazing land. Not only for the landowner, but for the community. And I think that's, I guess you'd call it a win-win for everybody. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tour. Thank you to the landowners for letting me do this. It's been very educational. Okay, bye.